Hello? Okay, you can hear me well. So I know it's 6 p.m. and we all want to go drink cervezas, but I'm going to be quite quick and I'm going to try and explain to you what AWS can do for your games. So, pienso que podría hacer eso en español, pero para hablar de tecnología estoy un poco más... soy mejor en inglés, entonces voy a hacerlo en inglés, pero podemos contestar tus preguntas en español después con my colleague who's here with me. So, hi everyone, my name is Alexis. I've been AWS for almost 6 years, actually a bit more than that. And I run the game tech, AWS for games business for Southern Europe, which is basically France, Portugal, Spain, and Italy at AWS. My team looks after studios and publishers, and we help you and all of that magnificent industry create wonderful games. So today, what we're going to do is that we will explain to you what we see as trends in gaming, so basically why we created a business only dedicated to games company, and then I'll tell you a bit more about what we do, right? We can offer and why we should probably work together, right? The presentation is going to be around 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and then as I said, we can take questions on the side. So 4 years ago, I was asked to take care of a big customer at AWS that's called Ubisoft. And starting to work with Ubisoft, we realized that the industry was a bit different, right? When we speak to you, we don't hear the same words that you would find when you work with Banco Santander or any other kind of companies, right? We have a specific wording. We have specific problems. We are at the forefront of innovation. We want to delight players with best experiences. We're passionate people, right? And so, very quick, we found out that we needed to create a team that would understand what games is, how do we make games, and so we could actually progress in that industry. And let's face it also, our industry has changed a lot, right? Especially in the last years, we've faced challenges like we didn't before. We had the new generation of console coming. We saw the rise of multiplayer games such as Battle Royale. We saw Web3, coming into games and changing a bit the way we do things. So all of that ever-changing context made the industry, actually the industry had to react in a way that they never did before, right? It was, we saw games company like Rovio start from 2 guys in a garage in the north of Europe to actually scale to a game that's now a very famous IP, right? So all of that combined, we wanted to create a set of solutions, a set of product that would help you reach the potential of your game, whoever you are, whether you're 2 girls in a basement in Bilbao, I don't know, or a company of 1,000 based in Madrid. So, I've tried to sum up here what the industry challenges we see, right? But of course, it's not complete, depending on what kind of games you're building, what platforms you're building on. Many things will depend, but basically, what we saw is that we have customer that needs to face scale, right? Because now, more than ever, your game can scale to millions of players in a minute, you need to actually have the technology to accompany it. I saw a game called Lords of Mayhem by a French editor called Wolsen that launched his game. There were 8 guys in Nice, in the south of France. They launched a game, and 6 hours after the launch, and there was not a very big team, 6 hours after the launch, the game became #1 on Steam. And if they, that means that all of a sudden they had to welcome thousands and thousands and thousands of players in their games, which was a multiplayer game, and they weren't prepared for scale. And that's kind of the importance of that challenge. We also understand that you face multiple area, right? You're here to build games. That's what you do. You build and you sell games. But so you're no experts in analytics. You don't know much about that. I mean, at first, you shouldn't know much about data, right? And then there's many things, back-end, analytics, advertising, monetizing. There's a lot of solutions. So we understand that it can be a bit confusing, right? When you look at outside and you don't really know what you can use. There's a lot of technology out there. Also, one of the things that we noticed a lot is that hiring is a problem, right? I think we all face that. Having talents in your team can be an issue. And being able to hire internationally or just not 5 kilometers away from your headquarters, that requires also a bit of logistic to be able to onboard those people and help you develop the game. It's very hard to work distributedly. We weren't used to that before. And probably the last one that's very important also is that you don't have a team of 500, right? Usually when you start building your games, especially if you're an indie or a young studio, you don't have the team to dedicate 5 people, 10 people, 50 people to actually run technology, right? You want to focus your efforts into games, into what the players see, the gameplay and the physical assets and everything that's around. But technology shouldn't be where you invest all of your money. And so based on those challenges, those 4 challenges, we kind of process that and create an offer that would be able to, well, actually, you could use to create your games. Okay? So I'm going to go in a little bit in details, but based on those observations, we decided to create AWS for games. So our mission is to help every game developer, wherever you are, to build great games. That's easy. Whether you're a team of 2 in Bilbao, as I said, or Electronic Arts, we want to help you the same way. So every one of you that's building a game has a contact within my team that can actually drive him or her through the technical challenges that they have and help them understand what we can do for you. Okay? The second thing about our team is that we have more than 200 services at AWS, but not all of them you're going to be able to use them, right? Because maybe you don't need IoT. But we have 15 services that are actually dedicated for games companies, such as game server. I'll come back to that a bit later, but manage game servers, or actually we have an engine also. And you can leverage that technology to actually implement in your games features that will be helpful in the future. And lastly, well, I'm not going to the importance of community. You all know that, right? When you work with AWS, and that's what we've actually succeeded to do in the last years, is that we have a community of users, of customers, that know how to build games and games features on AWS. So you never are alone. There's people around you, other studios that made the same choice. I could give names, whether we're in Spain, France, Italy, but even worldwide, we have some good reference that I'll go through a bit later. So I talk a lot about AWS for games. I tell you we can help you build your games, and what is it that we do, right? The way we present that is that we are with you end to end, from building your game to running it and then growing it. What it means is, if you look very rapidly, when you build your game, that's what I said about. That answers one of the problems that's hiring, for instance. We have a solution that's called Games Production in the Cloud, and I won't go into the specific details here because that's not the point of today. But whether you're a work-for-hire studio or you're building your own game, when you onboard people, you need to provide them with strong compute or computers that have GPUs to actually design the assets to create the game, right? That's easy to do. That's easy to do when you're in a studio and you manage the infrastructure locally, right? But what if tomorrow you're a Madrid-based studio and you find the best of the artists actually residing in Bilbao? You're going to ship a very expensive hardware that they're going to have to wire home, connect to the network of the studio. Basically, there's a lot of potential errors, maybe assets that are going to leak online. You don't want that, right? So we've created a solution where, with a connection to internet and actually pretty much any computer, Chromebook, whatever, you can connect to the same environment with the same computing power that you would have if you were Ubisoft or Quantic Dream, right? You would have access to everything that you have just at the edge of a Chromebook, and you could work securely to create assets for the game. When I said that we can help you run your games, well, obviously, if you're a multiplayer games, or actually not even, we can provide game servers, right? It's important because, well, people need to play somewhere, and if your game doesn't run 100% on the device, well, it's important to have a scalable environment where everybody can connect to play. Game security is also important, right? With the rise of cheaters and the people that are also trying to steal your code, it's very important that you have technology, and that's what we provide, technology to secure the content of your game and also detect cheaters and stuff like that. And then there is the part about growing your game. So what we mean here is that it very much varies depending on what kind of games you're creating, right? If you're on console, well, it's a bit different than if you're on mobile. But if you're on a mobile, for instance, you might have a premium, a free-to-play game. Sorry, it's 6 p.m. on a Friday. A free-to-play game, and you want to give content to your user, right? Because people, if you want to keep them playing to a game, and you don't want them to go elsewhere, you need to feed them with new content every day, right? Or every week or every month. But how do you decide what kind of content you're going to give them? You're going to shoot in the dark, or the other option that you have is actually to track via analytics what the users like in the game that you're developing, what they play in the game, right? So that you can actually guide your investments toward what they like. I had a customer in France 2 years ago that realized that 80% of its player base was dropping at the exact same place in the game. It was it was a progressive game, so you would go through many levels, and you realize that at level X, he had an 80% drop rate. And he didn't understand. He played it again and again and again, and he realized that actually there was not a bug, but one of the steps in the game was too hard to overcome. And so basically he had a big drop here. If you play that when you test it, there's no bug. Sorry. There's no bug. It's just that it's too hard. And the data can help you understand that so that you can actually act where you need to act. Okay? Also, a good example of what growing your game means, I talk about detecting cheaters. One of the things that Riot Games use with AWS is that they've created a framework using AI/ML to detect players that were cheating. And instead of banning those players, because they're cheaters, they'll find a way to come back in the game, they put all of the cheaters and they put them together in a room. And so only cheaters were playing against cheaters. And the fun fact is that there's no point in cheating anymore because basically nobody's better than everybody. But you don't impact the quality of your game because everybody can access the game. It's just that you're a cheater, you're going to play against cheaters, and that's what it is. So this is the kind of solution that we can provide, and we can help you design for your games. I've just highlighted here some good products that you might you need to be aware of. So GameLift is our managed game server solution. If, just a quick poll like that, does anybody play For Honor or played For Honor once in his life? Nobody? Yeah, one. Only one person? Does anybody know what For Honor is? Yeah, okay. So when you play For Honor, you're playing on GameLift, right? If you play, actually if you play Roller Champion from Ubisoft also, you're playing maybe Rainbow Six speaks to anyone? Okay, good, it's better. Okay, that game works better than the other one. So Rainbow Six also uses GameLift to host game server. What happens with GameLift is that with an API, a quite simple one, you just put the rules that you want for the matchmaking. I want people of the same level, same geo, same whatever, same platform to be put together, and we're going to scale up and down, depending on the number of players. Good thing is you have 1 million players coming in your game day one, like that French company I mentioned, and you weren't prepared, no problem. The game server is going to scale. You launch the game, and unfortunately, it's not such a success. It's okay. The game server are going to stay at exactly the capacity that you need. Another good example that we have is, so Twitch I think you all know Twitch, right? Twitch is owned by Amazon. It's the platform for streaming. But because we are very well integrated with our ecosystem, we can provide tools that helps you interact with the Twitch users. So you can implement features that will make, in the game, the ability to interact with streamers. That's great, because a streamer usually plays, and what happens on Twitch, you can comment, you can see the comment, there are some challenges that are launched, but what if you can create features within the game that will enable social interaction between the players and the streamer? Open 3D Engine is an engine that has been used to create the last 2 games of Amazon Game Studio, and that's now used for several games in development. And it's a game engine, so you know what it is, right? And all of that is completely free. I mean, not all of that. O3DE is completely free to use. So that's the kind of thing that we can provide. I'm just going to drink water, because if I cough, everyone hears me. Sorry. So partners. The funny thing is when I come to those kind of conference, and especially when I speak to indie studio, the first reaction that I often have is, oh, but we're too small to use AWS. Well, that's not true, right? That's not true, because most of the technology that you already use is actually a partner of AWS. Just quick handful, who uses Parsec? Nobody uses Parsec? Yeah, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's many people using Parsec. You have a solution on AWS that's we are partner with Parsec, and so you have a managed Parsec on AWS. So all of the technology that you use, you get that in the cloud. I know whether you design your assets with Adobe, we're going to have a solution also because it's a partner. And I'm not going to go through all the list, but we have many, many partnerships, whether you want to do analytics, design, or code pipeline. Also, one thing is that 90% of the biggest studio in the world uses AWS. And that's a good news, because if they rely on us to create their games, it's probably because there is a quality of services that we have. And we provide the exact same level of support to, as I said, a studio of 2 than Nintendo or Activision Blizzard. So I'm going to take just 5 minutes before ending that session. What I want to provide is a bit more of use cases, right, so that you understand what we do. I started with big, but you'll see that I also incorporated smaller studios in this example. Who knows what game it is? Come on. Okay, so unless you've been in a cave for the last 5 years, this is Fortnite, okay? And Fortnite has, at the peak of its usage, 350 million players. I mean, concurrent users, sorry. They process approximately 2 billion events per minute. You need to store that, right? Even though you would, even if you don't need to store that, but it's interesting to store 2 billion events, because then the data that you can access is crazy, right? I mean, you can understand what the patterns of the player are, what do they like, what weapon do they use, what gameplay, what game mechanics do they do best, where to improve your games. And all of that is used on AWS. There's actually a video there's a video where the CTO of Epic explains how does he uses AWS to do all the analytics and better understand the data within Fortnite. Disclaimer, the architecture that he uses is explained in the video, and you can actually use it for yourself. That's the same. Whether it's 2 billion or 200K even per minute, it's that exactly the same. It's not the thing. We scale up and down, but it's exactly the same technology. A bit trickier. Well, I talked to you about that, Lords of Mayhem. If you've never tried it, I encourage you very much to try it. It's a great game developed by Wolsen. It's a hack and slash kind of game. Their backend is on AWS. So all the identity management, the progression, the saving, all the backend is on AWS. And as I said, when they started to build on AWS, they were an indie studio of 12, I think, if I recall correctly. There was one guy in charge of the development of everything that was tech, basically, everything that wasn't game-related. And the day they launched on Steam, lucky them, there was an influencer, a streamer, that actually liked the game, and he played it on Twitch, and it became in 6 hours the most because it was free, the most downloadable game on Steam. And it scaled. They had no drop. They were able to welcome, if I recall correctly, 120K players in less than 2 hours on their game. Another example, who knows Dual Universe? Huh, it's a bit more niche. Yeah, okay. Who knows EVE Online? Okay. Dual Universe is an EVE Online kind of games where you can, so you embody a space trooper, and the idea is to create a community, basically create your planet with your own government, your own laws, and trade with other galaxies to. It's a persistent world where you can add up to 1.5 million concurrent players. This is all based on AWS. They have a single sharded world where that's, I don't have the exact data, but it's multiple worlds the size of Earth, right? Where you can actually create your own colony, your own ecosystem, and interact with others. The game is available. You can download it. And I think at peak, they had something like 700K concurrent users discussing within the game. And all of that is basically the infrastructure is on AWS. Probably last one. Okay, you know you know Ubisoft, but who knows the game? Yeah, it's good. You play a lot of games. Okay, that's Roller Champion. Roller Champion, as I said, uses GameLeft, the game servers, to actually host all its multiplayer capacities and scales up and down to actually welcome the number of players. So whether they, I mean, the good thing is whenever it's the night in the US, well, probably there's less player. While when it's daylight, it's the end of the afternoon, you have many people playing, and so they adapt the level of the size of the game servers to the number of players playing the game, paying only for what they need at the right time. So I'm done with my presentation today. If I want you to leave that room with one message, is that each and every one of you has a contact at AWS, right? You probably don't know it, but you can reach out to us and we'll make our best to help you. And as I said again, it's not because you're a studio of a, let's say, regular size, because most of the studio are less than 15 people or 50 people. Not everyone is Electronic Arts. It's not because of that we can't help you, right? We help every developer to to leverage the power of the cloud to create better games. So whether you want to build something, run it, or actually grow your game, please do contact us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alexis.